Welcome back to the latest episode of TT Plays. Franklin and I are back, and today we're going to be covering the 5 questions I've been asked the most as I've been demoing and trying to advocate for Grand Archive out here in Colorado. So to start us off, the first question I'm always asked after I give people a demo game or I talk about the game is money. Whole world revolves around money, right, guys? And they always ask me, well, how much does that deck cost? And I always go, I don't know. But I finally priced them all out. So this is Achilles Anson's Water Merlin list. He's been tearing up the online leagues with it. And this deck prices out at about $200. Some of the most expensive cards, and this is going to be a recurring theme, is the Grand Crusader's Ring. That's a material card. Obviously, it comes in about $35 now. Used to be up to $50. Thank you for the Dawn of Ashes Altar reprint. Some of the other big hitters are going to be the Ghost of Pendragon. Those are going to be about $25 to $30 a pop. We have Tide Diviners and Dungeon Guides, each coming in at roughly $10 to $12 a pop. And of course, we have Paladins. Paladins are, about $5 a pop. So those are kind of the expensive cards. So again, we're looking at a $200 Water Merlin deck here. Now, could you do it a little bit cheaper? Absolutely. You certainly could. You don't have to run the ghosts like we talked about. That's a quick way to save yourself $60. You don't have to run a Grand Crusader's Ring. That's another way to save you $35. That's almost $100 off. You literally cut the deck in half if you don't run those 3 cards. So definitely options if you're going to be building them on a budget. I do think the Grand Crusader Ring is a really good, quote-unquote, investment, just because you can use it in basically every deck, provided it's your only Divine Relic. All right, this is not my deck. This is Fire Lorraine. And I was trying to think of the most expensive deck I could think of, and I was like, Fire Lorraine, but not this one because it doesn't run Spirit Blade and Soul. But Fire Lorraine is probably the most expensive deck, or any Lorraine that runs the Ensoul, and that's because you're going to run 4 of those normally, and those are $30 a piece. On top of that, you're going to run Ghost of Pendragon. This is a low-to-the-ground aggro deck for Lorraine, and this is coming in at just over $100, with by far the most expensive card being the GCR. And then literally, if we look through this card pile, this is like bulk. Not literally bulk, but, we're a couple bucks. We're like $1 to $2 for a Hasty. We're $1 to $2 for a Clumsy. We're $1 to $2 for a Tempered Steel. This deck is extremely affordable. One of the other decks I priced out is that Fire Tristan list I show you guys a few times. That's, again, $200. The big hitters there are going to be Arthur's and Gildress's, basically at $10 or $11 a piece. And again, that Grand Crusader Ring. So, all in all, I would say Grand Archive decks basically vary between $100 and $300, with $200 being kind of that safe middle ground. There's a lot of different reasons for this, and the prices might not stay this low, but especially right now, the market is pretty low on these things. There's a lot of sealed product that's been pushed out there, and with widespread distribution, cards are pretty cheap. People are cracking these boxes, not chasing for a super rare or an ultra rare or something. What they're actually chasing for is the CSRs. So the CSRs are maintaining their values, but the actual cards you need to play a deck are reasonably cheap. And I think that's awesome. Top 8 for Flesh and Blood, just for a frame of reference, was between $750 to $1,100 per deck. Magic, I've got Shot at MTG Goldfish, Shot of Heaven in a dark mode. Right, this is standard. Cheapest deck is definitely going to be 81 for Mono Red Aggro. Looks like this is by far the most expensive. Esper mid-range coming in at 500. I have no idea what the standard for metagame looks like right now for Magic. I just pulled this up as a frame of reference. So it looks like, honestly, decks are kind of equivocal. We don't have near the outliers here. I don't even know if equivocal is the right word. Again, we're about $100 to $300, so maybe they just have some outliers. If we jump over to Modern, despite the lands decreasing in price, Modern is still a very expensive game, right? But in line with Flesh and Blood. Right, we're cheap burn, Tron for $500, high-end decks going for $12. I don't see any of the crazy $2,000 decks like they used to play. I guess Four-Color Omnath, I used to play that. Coming in at $1,600, the land reduction obviously cuts that down. So when people ask me how much does it cost to play Grand Archive, I say a couple $100, and I genuinely am pretty good with that. And like most things, you don't have to buy the most competitive deck to start. Just buy cards, start playing, figure out what you want to play. And that goes hand in hand to the next thing is like, where can I buy cards? And the first thing I'll always say is your local game store. Dueling Lands out here in Colorado has been phenomenal. They have a great stock of singles, whether you need Altar or First Edition. They try really hard to keep the binders full, and I certainly try to support them because you need a place to play games. The second place is going to be TCG Player. There's a bunch of different individual sellers. TCG Player is basically like a marketplace almost. It kind of pulls everyone together. I guess I can pull it up here in case you're new to TCGs, right? You can select here, go to Grand Archive, and you can browse. Come on. all the Grand Archive product here. So again, right, Scavenging Raccoon, staple of decks. You're going to have 3 to 4 of them. It's going to cost you 20 cents. Grand Archive, Bedivere, right, super rare. Tamer's running 2 to 4 of them, right? It's going to cost you somewhere between $5 and $10. One of the big things with TCG players, you're going to want to watch for shipping costs. Shipping, let's look at Incarnate Master here. Shipping is going to cost you a little bit more here. So this person is selling 1 for $2, but it's cost you 99 cents in shipping. If I want to buy 4, it might be cheaper for me to go this route instead of going for multiple vendors. So just be careful. Figure out what's going to be the best deal for you. A lot of times you're going to have a better luck trying to grab higher quantities from people. And there's a lot of really good sellers out there that I'd recommend. So just look around, try to find ones with good ratings, and you'll find some good deals. But TCG Player or your local game store is definitely where I'd pick up singles. The last place I'll say is the Facebook Marketplace and the Discord. A lot of good options there. It can be a little sketchier because you're basically just PayPaling someone money in Ether. If it's an amount of money that you would be upset if you lost, definitely use goods and services. And if someone asks you to cover fees, that basically means you tack 3% on top of PayPal. What that does is it insures you. It allows you to say, hey, I never got this product, but you're still covering the full amount. So the end seller still gets whatever they asked for. So how much does the deck cost? About $100 to $300. Where can I buy cards? The first 2 questions. And again, local game store, TCG Player, Facebook Marketplace, or the Merlin Discord are the place I would recommend. All right, the next thing that comes up is where can I find lists? And that's a great question. So build.sylvie.org was the first deck builder, and until recently it was the only deck builder I knew about. And you can only find lists if people give you the direct link, right? This is Sylvie for Suraz's Fire Lorraine list. This is Anson's Water Merlin list. Based on Sylvie, you can't browse and find lists. But again, you can build your own deck and publish it and then send links back to it. This is what I use in most of my deck buildings. Shout at Your Decks is mobile friendly, which is really nice for those late at night, you're laying in bed, you want to mess with your deck. It also allows you to look at other people's decks. Now here's Cabin's Wind Merlin, which is a really cool list if you haven't checked it out. It's basically like the Rye Ventus list, but it runs Merlin Kingslayer. It's a pretty cool list. I got to try it out myself. So Shout at Your Decks is a little bit of a nicer interface for finding other people's decks. Note, there's not a ton of ways to sort this based on like, is this some weird brew that I made versus is this some really competitive list that Cabin is playing? But again, Shout at Your Decks and Sylvie are the 2 deck builders. The other thing I want to shout out is Luxera's map. So if you go to the tournament lists, these are all the weekly online tournaments or some of the in-person tournaments, right? The big regionals here. So I'm going to look at this one here. They've got a great breakdown. This is the full meta breakdown. It kind of shows you, what heroes were played there. And then you can look at the top cuts. The top cuts are as interesting, right? Fire, Wind kind of dominating this one here, right? We've got almost an equal Lorraine, Merlin split here at 3-3. And then we've got the special Xander and Rye here coming in. And you can scroll down and actually look at their decks. We click this and it'll take us over to Sylvie. And then we can see this list here. So again, Luxera's map. And again, all of these links will be down here in the comments below, right? Luxera's map, phenomenal place to find different lists, tournament reports. They also do articles. Not a ton, but definitely some. They're really well written. So if you want to check out some articles as well, be sure to jump over there. So Luxera's map is the other one I recommend. So where can you find lists, right? Shout at Your Decks, build.sylvie.org, and luxerasmap.com, especially the tournament reports. I personally think this is super useful. Check it out. You can see all these cool things people are playing, right? Here's that Anson list we were kind of looking at earlier. All right. Next up is there an online client? And technically there is. So this is Tabletop Simulator. And if you are also having COVID PTSD flashbacks, I'm sorry. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It tries to simulate your kitchen table. So Tabletop Simulator is a game that costs you, I think, $10 on Steam. And then there are player-owned mods inside. And this is the Grand Archive mod. There are exports from Shout at Your Decks and Sylvie that let you spawn your decks over here. And I've already put them out there, but it's all manual, right? You got to draw cards manually. You click over here. We'll draw our hand. Draw. Oh, I haven't taken a color yet. I apologize. I'll go red. Right, we draw the cards. We would have to physically play the cards. Or if I wanted to play this Library Witch, right? She costs 2. I would physically have to take 2 cards and put them face down in my memory. Right? So it's all manual. There's no automation for it, right? We level up our Rye. everything else. You can search the card decks, but again, it is very manual, very fidgety, and you almost assuredly have to be on a call with someone because communicating what you're doing, you can kind of do this and like wave it at their creature. But again, with manipulating the priority stack and instance and everything like that, I definitely recommend just jump on the Discord call with the people. And if you want to play games, I recommend playing with your friends at first. But if you want to explore more, there's a bunch. The main Grand Archive TCG Discord has a phenomenal looking for game group. You can just find people that are willing to jump into TTS games. The other thing people do online are webcam games. That's exactly what it sounds like. You point a webcam that looks at your face and your playing area, and you play the game in front of the people. I prefer TTS to webcam. Webcam is just always a little sketchy. It's kind of hard for me to see what's going on. In TTS, like if this was their library, which I can always alt over it to see a full look at the card, it's really easy for me to look around and see exactly what's going on. Webcams are always fuzzy. They're choppy. I can never really see what people are doing. So I prefer TTS. It's not the best thing in the world. I would prefer Magic Gathering Online, that old like 1999 client. Talishar is by far better than here. The Pokemon app is better. Magic Gathering Arena is better. I mean, anything is better, but there is a way to play online as Tabletop Simulator. And with that, if you remember back to Luxera's map, there are multiple weekly digital events. And I do think that's worth highlighting. Like if you want to play online, if you don't have a great local community yet, there are options out there for you. So, is there an online client? Yeah. It's Tabletop Simulator. It'll cost you $10 and the mod within it for free. The last thing I want to touch on for new players is one of my buddies out here, Colin, always says, okay, go ahead and sell me on the game. Whenever I say I'm playing a new game, he's like, okay, sell me on it. So I'm not going to sell you on it. I don't want to sell anyone the game. But I will tell you why I like a game. And what I love the most about Grand Archive, outside of the art, is I love the depth of deck building. I like the amount of like fidgety things we can do our deck. I like the weird sideboarding choices we can make in our material deck. I love the changing of the elements. I think de-leveling adds a really cool feature to it. I love the split hero trees and you unite and possibly 1 or 2 different level 3 heroes. I think that's really cool. And I really like the complexity of the decision making. It's not linear where you're just trying to dump your hand as quickly as possible, right? Your decisions to dump your hand or maybe play too many spells early on can really hamper you later on where you don't have the resources to play some of your higher powered spells. If you rush your hero out to level 3 and completely forsake your hand, you might find yourself a very high level hero, but with very little board presence. So I like the balance that it brings. I enjoy the deck building aspect. And in general, I've just really, really enjoyed the gameplay for Grand Archive. So to recap, the 5 questions I feel like I'm asked the most often as I've been demoing Grand Archive to my local. How much does it cost to get into the game for a deck? Answers about $100 to $300 for a competitive deck. You can certainly get in cheaper. Just buy a starter, buy a couple boosters, start playing. Locals will give you bulk. I have tons of bulk I'll be happy to give you, especially Fractured Crown. Where can you buy cards? Support your local game store, TCG Player, Facebook Marketplace, Merlin, Discord. All those links will be down in the comments. Where can I find lists? Shout at Your Decks, build.sylvie.org allow you to build lists. Shout at Your Decks has a list of publicly available lists. Build.sylvie allows you to publish your list, but it doesn't have a searchable database as of yet. Luxera's map is the last way. Really cool collection, recap events, meta breakdowns. Love that website. Can't recommend it more. luxerasmap.com. Are there an online client? Yeah, it's Tabletop Simulator. You still see it up on the screen here. It's chunky, it's not free, but it works in a pinch, and I'm happy to have it as opposed to nothing. And lastly, why do I like the game? Again, for me, it's the depth of decision-making, the art, really clean rules, and the complexity of the deck building. I think I flipped it around, but deck building, complexity decisions, I really enjoy. So hopefully you found that helpful. Let me know why you are really into Grand Archive. Let me know the questions that you see in your local meta. How are you having luck building your local meta up? I've got a demo night going in about a week now. We'll have demo decks to give away, along with some event packs possibly, and another local game store, Advantage Games in Colorado, is committed to carrying it, so it'll be great. There'll be 2 game stores in Colorado, Dueling Lands, again, the OG, thank you so much for getting the game going, and Advantage Games getting into it. So if you're in Colorado, come by, say hi. If you're not, let me know where you're playing. Let me know how you're doing. Are you getting ready for Ascent? Are you playing in the online leagues? Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want to be entered in the raffle to win some event packs. You can find more information about that on my last video. And until next time, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.